lot of us are kind of lamenting the fact that here we are today in class together on Labor Day, which is a national holiday everywhere except St. Francis University. Nothing I can do about that. All I can do is try to give you your money's worth since you are here getting your money's worth today, I surely hope. Guys, for today, though, however, as a reward for you guys being here for Labor Day, being willing to be present and participating, we are going to, for part of class today, we're going to watch a video. And this is something that's very timely because it's going to be talking about the changing face of U.S. labor. We watched a video in my previous class about unions, more specifically. What we're going to be talking about in this class in particular is American manufacturing and the changing face of that particular industry. Before we get there, though, guys, a couple of items of note. First off, there's a couple of you that have not yet submitted your group's definition of HR in our Canvas group or have done the starter discussion board. Those are both 10 easy points. Here's the deal, guys. Listen up. If you have not yet submitted this, you have till today to get those in and receive no late penalties at all. So if you have not submitted those, please submit those by the end of the day. I'd like everybody to get perfect scores on this. Guys, in terms of the syllabus, if you have not yet read the syllabus, check it out. It is a guide. We most likely will not hit many of those timelines if we have any good conversation in class at all, which I believe we will. And we're going to be continuing on Chapter 1. But, of course, today is Labor Day. Now, the folks who were just in my labor class know what Labor Day is all about. But for those of you who are not in that class, does anybody here know what we celebrate on Labor Day? Work, for sure. What kind of work? You know? We like to think that we talk about labor. When we hear that word, we say that somebody is laboring. What kind of images come to our heads? What comes to your mind when you think somebody is laboring today? What do we think? Do we think of people who are sitting at typewriters, or what do we think about? Yes? Physical work, right? Yeah, well, the term Labor Day came out of the labor movement in the United States, which was part of the Industrial Revolution. So we started off in this country where we were an agrarian society, meant everybody grew their own food, and then with the Industrial Revolution, everybody started going to cities. So a lot of people were finding themselves working in very tough conditions for very low pay. So Labor Day actually started, believe it or not, it did not start in this country. What country did it start in for anybody who wasn't in my 203 class? What country did Labor Day start in? Because it wasn't the United States. Anybody have a guess? They're close to us. It did. It started in Canada. Canada was the first place that celebrated Labor Day. And Labor Day in the United States used to be a time when unions essentially got together and celebrated the role of the working person. Back in those days, we said the working man. These days, because men and women are both in the workforce, we say the working person. So Labor Day used to be a celebration of organized labor. Now, since our time in the 1800s till now, what has changed in the average makeup of the workforce? What is our economy based on in 2019 in the United States? Are we a manufacturing economy, or are we something else these days? What else? Very, very much driven by technology. What else dominates our economy? We are a service economy. Exactly right. So if you work in the service economy, if you work in education, you're in the service economy. If you work in medicine, you're in the service economy. If you drive for Uber, you're in the service economy. It's something like 80 to 90% of our economy at this point in time. So the face of the country has changed. That being said, there's a lot of movement to say, can we bring back American manufacturing? Can we bring back jobs and those other types of contexts into the country? And I was watching an article this weekend that really made me think about this, about how we've got these competing forces of technology in the service sector, along with people who want to bring manufacturing back. This was a really great article on CBS News this weekend, and I'm going to play it for you. It's about 10 minutes long, but it's worth it. I hope you enjoy this because we're going to talk about it in celebration of Labor Day. Yeah, so 100, what it was 108 or 116? Why is that sweatshirt so expensive? Yeah. Well, and they had to do so much stuff. You get to see the whole supply chain go into this. Now, if you were buying a plain hoodie right now, if you went to Walmart or Target or wherever, what would you expect to pay for a hoodie?
20 maybe.
Yeah, for a plain hoodie, probably $20. So you're talking about literally paying almost $100 more. What's the biggest part of that component? You got it. Because when we start talking about paying a fair wage or a living wage, I would estimate, although they don't say this particularly in the article, I'm betting that those folks are probably making 10 or 12 bucks an hour. I'm not saying those are great wages, but compared to what you'd be paying somebody in India or China, it's a significant increase. In terms of other things about this, because we're talking about American manufacturing, what else did you notice? What about the place that actually makes the yarn? Yeah, it's primarily robots. So we're talking about a traditional labor industry, something that is kind of part and parcel for U.S. industry, and we're using robots to keep the cost down there. Here's another insider information for you guys, a bit of insider information. In the United States, we make a lot of materials that go other places to get manufactured. For example, if you have a pair of Nikes that have leather in them, that leather might have come from the United States. If you're wearing a t-shirt, that cotton may have come from the United States. That stuff gets shipped to other countries because it's cheaper to ship it and have somebody else at a lower wage manufacture it than it is here in the United States. What else did you learn from this video? Anything else jump out? What about the people who are working in the actual manufacturing? What did you pick up about them? Yes?
They seem to kind of like enjoy their job. They're not being like
Yeah, there's folks. I didn't get the impression, like, when we start talking about garment manufacturing, what is the negative term we use for a lot of garment manufacturing? We say this place is made in a... Yeah, that did not seem like a sweatshop. I mean, these folks are getting piece rate, and they're getting incentives to improve their production, for example. But here's the interesting part. Probably most of the people in that factory, I would bet almost all of them, are people who maybe have a high school education or less. There are people who did not go to trade school, they did not go to college. So it's a good potential job for those folks. And that's really what much of this country was built upon, which is why people, for example, whether you say it's Elizabeth Warren or Donald Trump, who come from different places politically, everybody wants manufacturing back in the United States. Everybody wants jobs. Seeing what you've seen here for a very basic example of a basic product, making sweatshirts, what do you think? Do we have potential to bring more of these kinds of jobs back to the United States or not? What are your opinions? You don't think so? Tell me more. I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. Go.
I think people are becoming lazy. Like, I don't see people working jobs like that 10, 15 years from now.
I think you're right, and it's interesting because we're going to hit on the labor force participation rate. You notice how they said they were hiring migrant workers because they couldn't get people who were living in the country to take those jobs. Pretty interesting. Go ahead, Quinn.
I was just saying no, just because I feel like logistically it doesn't make sense. Like for you to buy like $108 just plain hoodie, I just feel like the common person is not doing that.
Yeah, that's a tough sell. It's a tough sell. Yes.
He's like so kind of like you said. So he's selling the idea with everything else that comes into it, the idea of American made. So I feel like there is a market for that, definitely. But I feel like it's very small. There can't be a lot of brands competing to be $110.
I agree with you. I'm going to use another example in that in a minute. Does anybody else have a comment on this? Well, you know, Levi's is one of the classic American brands. When everybody thinks about blue jeans, the first brand they usually think of is Levi's. They were founded in California. Most Levi's now are either made in Egypt, Mexico, or sometimes places like Indonesia or China. If you want a pair of Levi's from Kohl's or from someplace online, your average price is between $30 and $50 for a pair of Levi's. If you want an American-made pair of Levi's, still made in San Francisco, how much do you think they go for? How much? Not that high, but about $150, $160 to get something that's ultimately equivalent to what you could buy as an imported product for a far lower ticket. So I think this is going to be a tough sell. I agree that the idea of a life cycle or a lifestyle kind of choice for this is interesting. I don't know in the long run that a lot of these well-intentioned folks who want to bring American manufacturing jobs are going to have as easy of a time as they're thinking they will. Here's the other thing that's interesting, guys. You all know that right now our unemployment rate is what? 4%. About 4%, making it an employee's market, meaning you have a good command of your potential job offers. What most people don't realize is the labor force participation rate is really one of the numbers we should also be watching. Here's the difference. The unemployment rate means that of everybody who's actively trying to find a job over the age of 16, this is how many people cannot find a job who are looking for a job. So 3 to 4%, that sounds pretty good, right? Our labor force participation rate in this country, however, is only about 65% of all eligible people who could work. That means we're talking about 35% of people in the country who are choosing not to work or have given up on employment. And it's pretty interesting considering there are jobs available and some folks are just choosing not to fill them. So this is not a straightforward equation. And as the economy grows and changes and shifts away from manufacturing, I think we're going to see more challenges to bringing these kinds of jobs into the United States. Any questions or comments before we move into our material for today? I think it's pretty interesting because this particular region, because you guys are in a post-industrial region of the United States here in Pennsylvania, garment factories like that were really common. We had them at most local towns had a garment factory, whether it was Lilly, Pennsylvania, or Coalport, Pennsylvania, right down the road. People who didn't work in the mill or the mines often worked in manufacturing, and it was very common to see American-made clothing in stores. It's not so common anymore. So what's happening, guys, is right now more jobs are shifting. Most jobs at this point are requiring some kind of post-high school education. We're running into what we refer to as skills shortages, also called the skills gap. Now, one of the biggest areas we're seeing a looming shortage of employees, one of the things that's affecting HR departments right now, is skilled labor. For example, if you have somebody who knows how to fix cars, somebody who's a plumber, somebody who is a tradesperson, why are we seeing this drying up of those professionals? Why are we having such a hard time finding those folks right now? Anybody know? Why are we seeing fewer people who are coming out as mechanics and carpenters? We're seeing plenty of college graduates, but why are we not seeing the trades? Yes?
I think it's quite something because now I don't know, like machines do their job. They don't need mechanics.
Automation is definitely part of it. And what happened in this region of the United States, actually all over the United States, in the 70s and 80s, when a lot of our manufacturing and labor jobs were leaving, a lot of guidance counselors in high schools also started disincentivizing people from going to trade school. As a result, now since we do have some rebounding economy and we have construction jobs and mechanical types of engineering jobs, a lot of those folks are in short supply. So we overestimated, those of us who are in government or education overestimated the way this stuff should work. And as a result, we're running into what we refer to as a skills gap. Right now, for example, if you guys had to guess the average car on the road in the United States, how old is the average car in the United States? Yes. It's actually way older. It's about 12 years old. What that means is we're going to have a looming shortage of auto mechanics. Most mechanics are over the age of 45 to 50. That means in the next 10 to 15 years, as those people start to retire, who's going to be fixing our cars? Who's going to be maintaining our roads? The average age of a nursing educator, for example, in the United States is 56 years old. And so in the next 10 years, we're going to be running into a crisis for nursing educators. So we've got these looming skills gaps. And when you think about that, companies themselves also have to think about where they are going to be running dry on skills. If I were a person in charge of a college business program, for example, I'd be wondering where are my analytics folks, where are my technology folks, how are we going to teach people how to deal with a changing workforce? If you want to know why we have an analytics major in minor now, business analytics, it's because the world is changing. One of the other ways that we're changing too is the fact that we are working globally. This has contributed to some of the death of our manufacturing. When I say this stuff, guys, I leave it to your own judgment to say whether or not it's right or wrong for us to ship hard labor to countries that don't pay living wages. That is up for your own personal decision. But the bottom line is we do offshore a lot of work. Looking at the whole big picture, though, it's not all exploitation. Some of the stuff is just the fact that most businesses these days are multinational corporations. If you're Ford Motor Company, if you're IBM, if you're Verizon, you're operating in more than one country. So we have lots of different types of global workers. One of the ones I want you to know about is something called an expatriate. If somebody is from one country and works in another country, we refer to that person as an expatriate. So say, for example, if St. Francis opened a branch campus in Ireland, and I got sent over to work in Ireland because I'm still a United States citizen, I would be counted as an expatriate. What would be some of the challenges somebody from one country working in another? What might be some? Yes,
Language barrier.
for sure. Learning language. If we're going someplace where, for example, because I'm an English speaker, if I don't have the mastery of the language, that could be a real problem. Language is a big one. What else could be a challenge? Yes.
Culture.
Absolutely. For example, if I go to a country where, for example, certain social norms are in place, you go to certain places in the world, for example, it is customary to spend a long time getting to know someone. Quick meetings are considered rude. I have to learn the culture. Could there be other challenges? Yes. Actually getting legal clearance to work there and get to that other country in the first place could be challenging as well. Even something as simple as, when do we hold meetings? Even though we're connected online, what could be the problem? Yeah, somebody in a different time zone than me. How are we going to schedule a meeting if it's 4 a.m. in another country and we need to somehow have a discussion about this stuff? It can be very challenging. One of the other things that can be challenging too is to make sure that we are not contributing to the abuse of people by paying wages that are substandard. One of the companies that gets mentioned a lot with this is Nike. Guys, who here knows why Nike has some controversy in the news the last few years when it comes to labor? They got accused of paying like substandard wages, basically, non-living wages to people making shoes. And when I say this, I'm not setting judgment on anybody. Nikes are my favorite shoes, guys. I wear them before anything. But what's it cost to make a pair of Nikes? Just the material. The average pair of shoes. Not even. Maybe $5 to $8. What's it cost to buy the average new pair of Nikes? You're talking over $100 for a new pair, no matter what kind they are, and up from there. So we're making very strategic use of low-wage labor in other places. And the question is, are we abusing people? Guys, to speak of Nike and to speak of these other companies, as we're moving into the 21st century, things are changing. Some of these are brands that you like. Some of them are brands that you've moved past. What are some of the business challenges these brands are going to be facing in 2019 and beyond? What would be a challenge that Ford Motor Company is facing? What do you think? Yes, sir. Yeah, switching the kind of cars we're making, we're going to get away from gas and diesel and go to electric. So that's a technology change. What other challenges is Ford facing? Yes. They're only making trucks and SUVs because of changing taste. You're right. What else are they facing?
I don't know, just the fact that I've been hearing, they're kind of making their cars too good. Their cars are staying on the road so long that it's kind of messing them up.
Yeah, I think it's a legit answer. I mean, we're talking about people in the old days. The old days of 20 years ago used to trade their car every couple of years. They don't do that. They're hanging on to it these days. What else? What are other challenges that Ford is facing? Because we talked about we're moving to electric. We've got people keeping their cars longer. We're getting rid of cars and going to trucks and SUVs. How does that affect how Ford hires and who they hires? Who they hire, I should say. Ford's no longer a car company. Ford's a technology company that sells cars. All these new cars, guys, are going to be more high-tech all the time. They're running on fuel cells. They're running on batteries. The same people we recruited to design our cars 15 years ago aren't going to design the cars for the next 25 years. And here's another trick, too, guys, in terms of marketing. The average person under the age of 20 is waiting longer to get their driver's license now in the United States than they did 20 years ago. Why is that? You got ride sharing, you got online social networks, you got ways to have a social life outside of all that. Let's do one more. Because Facebook used to be everybody's favorite. Not everybody loves Facebook anymore. What challenges is Facebook facing moving into the next part of the century? Privacy, for sure. They've been all over the news in terms of people saying, wow, how is Facebook misusing my personal information? Is Facebook cool for people under the age of 30? What's your number one social network? What are people using these days mainly? Instagram, Snapchat, the social network du jour. So if I'm Facebook, and I started off being the ultimate choice in social networks 5-10 years ago, and now I'm no longer cool with that generation, I better be thinking how to reinvent myself. I better be hiring people who are going to tie me into folks who are not going to just keep getting older. How do I rebrand myself? Or maybe I hire some good, smart financial people. Who does Facebook also own? They own the other big social network you just mentioned. You got it. So Instagram is Facebook's attempt to stay relevant with people who are younger than Facebook users. If you can't beat them, you buy them. And that was Facebook's particular strategy. My point is, these companies are looking for skill sets that are going to take them into the next part of the century, and they've got to bring them in. And people in an HR role are going to be recruiting, training, developing, and working with the people actually controlling the business, the CEOs, CIOs, and the CFOs, to determine what skills we need and how we're going to recruit and afford them. Guys, if you were giving Tim Cook advice at this point in time, the CEO of Apple, what would you be telling him at this point about his company? Go for it. Yeah, absolutely. What's an iPhone? What's a new iPhone X or a 10 going for these days? Yeah, and as a result, what are people doing? Yeah, man, I'm rocking the 6S till it's so bent that it won't work anymore. I don't want a $1,000 phone. That, by the way, was my biggest gripe. This lovely phone has lived in its case its entire life. And when the Apple $29 battery replacement came out, my local Apple dealer told me they couldn't replace it because my phone was bent due to a design defect from Apple. That's a kick in the butt right there. But what else would you be telling Apple? When's the last time you got excited about an Apple product? Man, people your age used to stand in line for the new phone reveals because they're running out of ideas. Tim Cook is no Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was a cult of personality, somebody who people would hang on the edge of their seats to see what he was going to come up with next. And they don't have that guy in their company right now. So they got to think about it. Apple's big reveal this year at their big normal day where they revealed their new products, you know what it was? A credit card. Apple's big reveal was now you can get an Apple credit card. I'm a little bit underwhelmed. So guys, in terms of how else the workplace is changing, if we said per hour, what are you making? What are we paying people per hour? Now these figures are what we refer to as a wrapped rate. Has anybody ever heard the term wrapped rate? I'm going to explain it to you in a way I hope makes sense. We talked about how benefits cost money. Like right now, if I were one of you guys, and I were getting my first job offer out of college, and I was getting a job for $100,000 a year. By the time I get my fringe benefits and my health care and everything, what's that job actually worth? Take a guess. Oh, it's worth more than that. What's your guess, guys? How much is that job actually worth? Because it's way more than $100,000.
Oh,
130. You got it. So the average benefit package for most full-time employees is $30,000. So by the time you get that job, let's say you're a salaried worker, that's $130,000 a year. And the way you figure out what an hourly wrapped rate is you take the number of hours you are likely to work in a year, and you divide your salary and benefits by that number of hours, and that tells you what your hourly wrapped rate is. This is 2012 information. It's a little dated from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. But if you took the average American manufacturing worker, and this is back in 2012, we're talking about people who work for the United Auto Workers, we're talking about people who work in any manufacturing average at all. The average person in the United States who's working in manufacturing makes almost $36 an hour in wrapped rates. If you look at Australia, the rates are way higher, $47.68. We get down into other places where we offshore work. You get to the Philippines, $2.10 wrapped rate. There's no question as to why we are outsourcing some of this work, and it comes down to labor rates. Some of the other things we're talking about too, guys, it can be very dangerous to send people into certain countries. If you are managing people globally, you got to worry about their safety and security. Who here has ever heard of a company called Blackwater? Blackwater is who manages logistics in war zones. They're a company, they're a private contractor, and they actually run private security in places like Iraq for companies. So if people are going in and working for an oil company or a manufacturing company, somebody is protecting them. If you're working in HR, you may actually be making sure that your people are protected in dangerous places on the planet. So before we move on with globalization, because we've been going pretty hard and fast here, we've got about another 15 minutes together, I would like to stop to take a question or comment. Question or comment about anything? Sir?
Did you follow our game this week?
I did, but congratulations on the win. It sounds like a squeaker. So how do you feel about it?
Feels good to get the first one this year.
But now, when's the first home game?
It's week 3.
14th?
Yeah.
I won't be making that one, but I'm hoping to make the rest of them. So I wish you guys well.
Thank you.
Yeah, so good question. One more question or comment? Sir?
You want me to update up on that?
That's an excellent question.
bro.
That's an excellent question, and I don't have an answer from the administration's standpoint. My only answer can be that because you don't have the day off, you're actually getting a better financial value for your dollar because I'm here working on Labor Day. How about that? But no, and I see it's raining out there, which is going to mess up my plans because I was planning on having a grilled steak dinner tonight to celebrate Labor Day. Instead, I might be eating a hamburger. We'll see what my wife wants to cook. So, but that's an excellent question. Guys, to move on, we're going to hit a couple more key points here today. In terms of global human resource management, we talked about many of the risks. We talked about the fact it can be tough because we're dealing with multiple cultures. Logistics are tough. Even getting time zones together is tough. And this is stuff that people have to deal with from a human resource management standpoint. We start talking about, now we're going to be talking about EEO, Equal Employment Opportunities, I should say, in a following chapter. But the bottom line is when we're working around the globe, different countries have different opinions on things like ethnic diversity and race and gender. I'll give you an example. If you are operating in India, India has a very specific way in which people interact. It's called a caste system. Have you ever heard of that before? What that basically means is you are born into a specific social class, and some of these people do not combine. That does not necessarily mean that we should buy into that system. It means we need to know about it. Some countries also have what we refer to as patriarchal cultures. If something is patriarchal, what do I mean? It's male-dominated. It is not uncommon, guys, to see countries where, for example, a female executive might be the person who's also serving the coffee. I don't mean to say we should accept that. I don't mean to say in our culture it is acceptable. It means we need to be aware of it. Guys, please pay attention up front of the room. It means that we have to know about those things when we get into the workforce. We start out talking about aging. Different cultures view aging in different ways. For example, in some cultures, people who are older are revered. Generally speaking, in Western culture, in our culture, what are some of the stereotypes about older people? That one's true. That one's true. Absolutely. There's no way to ruin my day in the world like getting behind a Buick on the way to work. I know at that point I'm going to be late. That one is absolutely correct. But what's that? You see, there's a difference. There's a difference between old and exceptionally retro cool. You're exceptionally retro cool. Yeah. So your car goes over 35, though, right?
Oh yeah.
Most Buicks do not. And they had knobs like this big. They have clock displays so people can see through the windshield as the steering wheels are driving them. Yeah, Buicks. When you get your first Buick voluntarily, they also give you a pair of Velcro shoes and track pants because it's all done, like big white Velcro shoes. What else are some of the issues of aging in the workforce, though? It comes down to stereotypes. We view people as being not good with technology. People are not going to be physically capable. People are going to slow down the workforce. Those are very Western stereotypes of aging in the workforce. But the bottom line is we got to get used to it in 2012 or 2019 and beyond because people are staying in the workforce longer. Why, in Western cultures, are people working longer? Why are they staying around in the workplace? Yes. They're going to live forever. The average age for your generation. Most women in this room will live to be at least 85. People in my generation, it was still topping around 78, 80 years old. You got to have money for retirement. And what else do older people prize more than younger people as a benefit? You got it. Healthcare. So my point with all this stuff, guys, most of your definitions, when I saw your definitions for HR, none of these are wrong. This is our starting point. The things I heard that were emphasized, and these are all correct. that HR is a rule enforcer. HR is somebody who makes sure that the paperwork gets done. HR has the power to punish people as well. What we want to start talking about is the strategic function of HR. So my question for you, based on these global challenges, these changes we're facing, why should HR have a seat at the board table alongside the other departments? Or should it? Sir? Yeah, I mean, you got to know what your company's about. To know how to hire, how to develop people, you got to know where your company's headed. I agree with you. So to know what the company's about, why else should HR have a seat at the table? Ma'am?
If they're in charge of the strategy behind the company, they could give input as well.
I would hope so. That's a great answer. So if we know, for example, where the company wants to head, we can say basically we either have those skills or we're going to need to develop them. Think about it for when St. Francis, if we want to start a new sports team, if we don't have a coach, if we don't have an infrastructure, if we don't have facilities, we can't start that program. We got to know who should be there at the table. There are other reasons why HR should be sitting at the table for these decisions. I can think of a big one.
Make sure like you're not violating any practices.
You got it, man. The law. We got to make sure we're staying in compliance with the law. Are we doing something that could be potentially discriminatory? Are we doing something wrong? And furthermore, do we have the right skills and should we be in this business in the first place? Are we making good use of our time and resources? If we're St. Francis University, there are things we're good at. We're good at academics. We're good at athletics. We maybe aren't the right people to be running our own dining services or bookstore. So when we're talking about expanding, this is the kind of stuff we need to think about. That's why we have a strategic function for HR. Now, technology plays a role in this, guys. If we are thinking about how technology has changed the way we administer stuff, from a customer service standpoint, 15 years ago, none of you in this room would have been managing your own benefits. You would have been going to the HR office and say, I want to change my retirement, I want to change my health care, I want to sign up for a payroll deduction. You can do that all yourself now because it's all automated. And people are comfortable with online. So that's one function of HR, but the other function of it is being able to make strategic decisions. If you're keeping good HR metrics, you're going to be able to keep a record. Who's had training? Where's our skills inventory? If we want to start a new program, who do we have working for us who already has this degree or this certification? Something as simple as a spreadsheet or database can be powerful. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this information, if we want to make sure, for example, that we are a non-discriminatory workplace, we better be keeping demographic data so we can track if everybody here looks the same. If we're not hiring any diversity in our company in 2019, we got a problem. We got an ethical problem, we got a legal problem. And the technology should be helping us track this stuff. So, some of the other things we got to think about. It's 2019. We're all bringing our mobile devices to work, guys. That's a problem. It's a problem for HR. How is that? How could mobile devices at work be a problem? Yes? Absolutely. How many of you know somebody who's been in a traffic accident because of distracted driving? Yeah. If I'd asked that question 10 years ago, not one hand would have gone up. They all have phones now. Well, we got the same thing. We got the same problem in our work environments. How else are mobile devices a problem for companies? Yes?
Sometimes it can put too much on what's going on in your company out more.
Yeah, you're really talking about airing your dirty laundry online. People do it all the time. By the way, there's a big discussion about whether or not that should be considered protected speech. If you're talking about workplace conditions, that's a fine line. One of the other issues, too, employee theft, intellectual property. If you attach an iPhone or a Google phone to a laptop, it's essentially putting an external hard drive. Very easy if you don't have good security policies to expose company secrets. Or say, for example, I'm in a meeting and I record somebody without their knowledge. That's not admissible to court necessarily. But if somebody say nasty things about women, for example, or say nasty things about some ethnicity, for example, that's a very easy way to expose poor management at work as well. I'm not saying it shouldn't be, it's happening. Social media, again, is a challenge because we have to educate our employees what is and what is not acceptable. In 2019, it's a fine line whether or not you can fire somebody if they're talking about your company online. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for example, there were a movement here to raise the minimum wage for hiring at our institution. And several employees started talking about that online. On one hand, under the First Amendment. That is a matter of public concern, because it's talking about wages. On the other hand, if you have signed some sort of a disclosure agreement that you will not say things about your employer online, those two could hit cross purposes. This is one of those examples where technology is outpacing the law, and it's a big concern for employers in the 21st century and beyond. Guys, what we're going to do, in honor of today being Labor Day, instead of getting into ethics, which is going to be an intense conversation on Wednesday, I'm going to let you go a couple minutes early in celebration of Labor Day. That being said, if you have not submitted your Week 1, your Chapter 1 assignments, please do so. I want you all to get full credit for it. Go out and have some fun with the extra 10 minutes in your day. Have a wonderful day, guys.